Welcome back, everybody. A bonus episode here on the Sash podcast. I'm very happy to be joined by former Premiership Eagle, host of Backchat podcast, and of course, he's on Fox Footy as well, Will Schofield. Hello, mate.
Rob, good to be with you, mate. Been seeing the action over there in the east over in a few little fan podcasts, and I tell you what, it's not little over there anymore, the Sash. You boys are doing very well, and you must be happy with how the Bombers have started the year.
Yes, I am. We're some of the most pessimistic bunch here on this channel after years of heartache, as I'm sure you could imagine. But we've had the discussion this week. Is like, can we say we're consistent now, or is it too early to do that? There was a lot of touch wood on Monday night when we were talking about this week's game, but I don't know. I feel like we're all pretty happy with where it's at, but there's a very Essendon thing to do, and that's go into state and lose to a team who we should probably beat. So,
Mate, well, like I talk about the spreadsheet a bit, right? I've got a fair few platforms I talk shit on, right? So yeah, we've got Backchat. I've got another podcast called the Shelter Footy Cast, which is a bit more analytical. Obviously got the Fox Footy stuff, do a bit of radio over here, a lot of shit talking, basically.
yep.
And I will say what I've been saying about Essendon this year. I can't fucking pick you until you're good. And until you're good, I won't pick you. And until I see you good, you're shit. Now, what? And what I saw last week, I think you're on the precipice of good. So I may be sort of shifting my pessimism towards pro Essendon, but this is a big danger game over here in the West.
Yeah, it certainly is. Before we jump into the game, Backchat podcast. Now, obviously, a few of our listeners will be pretty savvy, and I'm sure they know what you're doing, but we are very Bombers-centric here. So for the listeners who don't know what you're doing, can you give us the elevator pitch? What's Backchat all about?
You're a good man. Look, Backchat Studios is my podcast company, so we make podcasts. That's easy. We've got 7 podcasts in our range at the moment, and one of them is Backchat. So Backchat's a 3 episodes a week show. We run 2 of those live on YouTube, Monday and Fridays. 4:30 Western, so 6:30 Melbourne, and we try to dive a little bit in the middle of podcasting and mainstream. So we're not on the couch, we're not Jared Waitley, but we're not shit kicking podcasts, right? We're somewhere in the middle. We get really great access from the footy club. So we had Mason Redman on last week. Big fan of Mason's, big fan of Nick Martin's as well. And the 2 shows either end of the week. That's a review and a preview. And we have a little look at the quirky stuff that's going on. A bit of a laugh, bit opinionated. And yes, okay, I'm a West Coast player, but I'm not a West Coast fan. Never have been, to be honest. Even when I was playing for them, it was very difficult to be a fan while you're playing for a footy club. I was a Geelong fan growing up. West Coast employed me. And now I'm a bit of a Giants man. So we've got Hamish Brayshaw on there with us. He's a Sandover medalist over here, brother of Angus and Andy, of course. And then Dan, who's a massive West Coast nuffy. But we do try to spread the love. We have players from every club. Harris Andrews is on last week. I had Alex Pearce the week before. I had Mason Redman, which, of course, your fans will know lots about. He was brilliant. His talent. But above all, what we do at Backchat is we glorify backmen. And we give backmen, if I have a look around here, we glorify backmen and we give them the respect they need. So Backchat, right, we just brought out our own beer, Backchat Ale, brewed for backmen. This right here is a Golden Fist. It is Alex Rance's 2016 Golden Fist.
Ooh, I like that.
So Alex generously donated to us this one. Look, we think the Golden Fist has gone a little bit downhill. And we love Danny Frawley and we give that the greatest respect. But it's currently being awarded by midfielders. So we run a Backchat Backman of the Year competition. Mason's been going okay. Look, personally, I'd like to see some more Essendon players involved in that. But as you can hear, mate, Backchat, look, we love talking a bit of shit, having a laugh, not taking ourselves too seriously and everything in the middle. So I'm sure some of your fans will love it. And after you're done listening to the Sash, perhaps you could fit it into the podcast routine.
Love it. Yeah, I think for me, I'm a media guy first and obviously a footballer second in terms of my ability. But we're talking backman. In year 12, Scully, I was the captain and fullback of the fourths footy team. So not the ones or the twos or the threes. I was in the fours, but I ran that ship from the back. So that's how I did it.
I knew the second we met that I liked you, and that tells me exactly why. A fullback in the fourths, we fucking love it. We absolutely love it.
Yeah, I reckon in that division, every full forward, every second one is called plugger, and they're usually 150 kegs, maybe 7 foot tall, and plugger stands in the goal square. So every week I played on a plugger from the various schools around Melbourne. Few weeks had a few bags kicked on me, but often was flying in there with the fist and then just torping it out of 50 and hoping we didn't lose by 100 points.
Mate, I don't think anyone could argue, and I'm certainly not going to mount the case that playing on plugger in the fourths is any harder than playing on Jordan Agoe in the goal square in the fucking grand final in front of 100,000. That is one thing that we have in common, I'm sure. We fucking hate Collingwood. I'm sure we all hate Collingwood, right? Yes. So I do. I'm happy to say it. I'm meant to be impartial in the media. I'm not. I don't like it.
Well, that's something you're going to have in common with a lot of Essendon fans. There's certainly a big rivalry between the clubs. I did want to ask you about rivalries because this week I was looking at the fixture this week and it's a bit of an unofficial rivalry round. I feel like 10 years ago the AFL really were like rivalry round. It's a big thing. This week they're kind of half-assed doing it, and you look at the games like Carlton, Collingwood, the Showdown, the Sydney teams are playing, and then Essendon and West Coast are playing. Now, 30 years ago, I reckon this was a pretty big rivalry.
Yes.
Where do you think this sits now?
Well, I know Sheeds is coming over for it, so the club's pushing pretty hard for the jacket waving, which I did see Anzac Day, and you absolutely stuck it up the Collingwood fans, by the way. That was brilliant. The only way it would have been any better was if you actually won the game. But we won't go back to that. I'm sure you've moved on. Look, where does it sit now? I mean, look, the rivalry stuff with West Coast right now is difficult because they've been so shit. And we can't really say Essendon's been a whole lot better, have we? So it's always difficult to have rivalries when the winning comes second and you're actually looking for just a performance or a competitive performance out of your team. Where does this one sit? Probably nowhere, to be honest. I mean, what was the last thing that happened? Was it Zachy Merritt who ripped Nick Nat's dreads out on the boundary that time?
Yeah, I think was that the 2019 elimination final, possibly.
Yeah, correct. So I mean, those sorts of things build rivalries. If it, and what else does? Close games. So we probably haven't had too many of those. Look, I think West Coast fans are notoriously old and love their things that have happened 30 years ago. So perhaps most of them might think that this rivalry does exist.
That's it. Well, it's good to know the whereabouts of Kevin Sheedy because I actually we didn't speak it off there, but I actually produce a television show for NITV at the moment, and I've spent the better part of 3 weeks trying to lock down Kevin Sheedy because I don't know what it is about him. He answers his phone. He always answers his phone, but he's always in the car and he never has his diary on him. And I'm like, Kevin, can you just tell me if you can do any of these dates? Because he's like, I want to come on the show. It's the Indigenous footy show. He wants to come on and talk about all the work that he's done. I want to try and get him around Dreamtime. And he's like, I want to come on. I want to do it. And I'm like, can you do these dates? I don't know. Well, can you find out, please, Kevin? Can you let me know, please?
He is notoriously. I've been through that ringer as well. Try to get him on Backchat. Love to come on, Scully. Big fan. Blah blah blah. He's never been on. I think he could roll that out to everyone, so don't take it personally.
Yeah. I won't. Well, anyway, I'll call his son, who I know, and see if he can pull some strings for me. Let's get back to Eagles Bombers. We'll look at the Eagles first. I want to talk to you about a certain man. Now, if you open Instagram, if you look at a newspaper, if you look at anything, everyone's always talking about this one man. He's the face of footy at the moment, in my opinion. He's the biggest thing in the West Coast. Jake Waterman. He's playing good footy, mate.
Tell you what, the big G train he's going by. Fraser Gehrig. He's channeling his inner Fraser Gehrig at the moment. For a number of years, he's gone by Loosh. So when Brendan Favola moved up to Brisbane and started calling himself in the third person, so referring to himself as the Fevolution. So the Loosh, Jakey Waterman's been rolling that out, and now he's going with the G train. So look, for Essendon to win this game, and they're going to go in favourites as they should. They're going to put some time into Jake Waterman, and I think probably at the start of the year, you'd probably think Oscar Allen, big Benny Mackay, will be matching up against him. Well, I think he probably goes to Jake Waterman. He's he's third in the Coleman, one of the most informed forwards, if not the informed forward in the competition, and a lot of footy's going through him. So you're going to want your best defender on West Coast best forward, and right now that's Jake Waterman.
Yeah. No, he's played some brilliant footy from what I've seen, and like I can remember a couple of years ago, obviously when Alec was playing for Essendon at the time, and Jake was playing for West Coast, and I was looking at both of them, and I'm like, look, I don't know if either of these guys were going to make it. Like, obviously, Chris did some amazing things. That his dad, Alec, unfortunately, didn't stay at Essendon, but
Yes, a bomber. I forgot.
bit of a like. Look, I'll be honest. I don't watch every West Coast game, but I watched him play a few times, and I was like, oh, I don't think this is it. And then I watched some of your games this year. I watched the Derby. I watched a couple of other games, and I was like, is this the same guy I was looking at 3 years ago? Like he looks like he's totally revolutionised his game.
Yeah, I mean, like to put it in like perspective and probably relevance to Essendon, it's maybe a similar thing to Kyle Langford. Like Langford, wait, did I say Langford?
Yeah,
That's
Langford.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, he wasn't a key forward for you guys, and in fact, you probably wouldn't have played in there. He's run through the midfield. The thing you got to remember about Jake Waterman is he's been third and fourth and fifth string forward for his entire career, and this is his really first opportunity to be the guy. Now, not saying that everybody would do what he's done. I'm not saying that everyone would be able to jump up and take the opportunity like he has, but it says something being the guy. And like Langford's pretty much your guy, given that, Peter Wright's been out, the package, he sometimes runs through the midfield, especially last week. He's become your guy and his footy's shown it. So Jake Waterman's probably similar, and it'll be interesting to see how that fits back together when Oscar Allen's back in the side, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So we should see a year of Jake Waterman in that role. And good on him, mate. Like I'm very good mates with him. Had a lot of struggles with his health last year. Almost gave the game away. So to see him just come out and kick goals, like as basic as that, it's been good to watch.
Yeah, because I know with Alec, he had his story was quite interesting. Like he had chronic fatigue, like almost similar story. Nearly gave the game away, and then to come and actually get up and play a couple of seasons of AFL footy, and I think he might have even kicked one of his first ever goals against West Coast, funnily enough. So, pretty great story. Look, I will ask you about the other man, though, the one who, look, I was probably joking about, Harley Reid. Look, I don't read Western Australian newspapers, but I keep seeing these photos of what is supposedly on the front page, and half of them are coming from Josh Garlop, so I don't know if they're actually real or not. But I do need to know, like, on like a scale of like the Beatles to someone like me, where is this hype levels at? Are we at Beatles mania for Harley Reid?
I'd put me with you. Don't worry. Look, it's pretty significant over here. I wouldn't I wouldn't start reading the West. That's not something I would recommend. Need a bit of fueling for perhaps the fireplace when it gets cold in Victoria. Might be good fire starters. If you want to start subscribing to it, but it's junk. And I've said that I don't feel like I'm disrespecting anyone that putting out some absolute trash at the moment. But they've lent heavily into the Harley Reid stuff. He's been on the back page something like 75 out of 90 days since he's been, since footy season's come around. Look, I think I played with a couple of these guys, played with Ben Cousins, played with Nick Nananui, and like those two are the two guys that you think you're walking down the street and you get stopped. Like that's real popularity. That might happen to me every now and then, and it'll be, hi mate, where's the nearest bus stop? Where's the nearest shelter to go and stop somewhere? No one's recognising me, mate.
You got a lighter, bro? Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Don't worry. Yeah, you got a pack of stickies I can smoke. No worries. Here you go. Look, I think he's right up there with those two. Nick Nat walks into a room over here and everyone knows who he is. Harley Reid's the same, and. It probably goes into the conversation, does he stay? I'm all chips in that he does. Gone early on this. I've gone the reverse Sam McClure from pretty early on in this, actually. I remember calling out Sammy McClure and Harley a little bit before the draft, saying, mate, just get over here and you'll see what it's like. And, it's a two-team town over here and there's a lot of benefit for being the guy. Of course, there's a lot to take on, but, mate, he could make as much money as he ever likes over here. So I don't think moving back home, he's from the country. Moving back home, Tom Gala is 4 hours from Melbourne anyway, mate. It's 4 hours from Perth. It's 4 hours from moving to Melbourne's not moving home.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And like, look, I don't know Fremantle inside out, but I would garner that being, the bigger team in West Coast, the team that's got the history, got the culture. I feel like you're walking into something pretty good. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a Hungry Jack's next to the training ground. Like, what more do you need? It seems like you know,
Simo owns it. I'm not joking.
Does he own the Hungry Jacks?
Mate, Adam Simpson owns the Hungry Jacks next to the training facility. Well, one of the boys, I won't say who it was. Let's just call him Alex Witherden. Was going home from training, from training, and he wanted some nuggets. Right, and he made up this story that was from his girlfriend's mum or something. It was for Wither.
Okay.
He's gone in. He's ordered the nuggets. Bit of laughter and stuff. He thought, this is weird. Gets his bag, and they said, "What sauce do you want?" He said, "Oh, I'll get sweet and sour sauce, thanks." Gets his bag filled up, great, chucks it in, gets home, opens her up on the couch. The little shits at the Hungry Jacks had put 12 sweet and sour sauces, no fucking nuggets. It was nuggets. It was sauce minus the nuggets. And anyway,
wow.
Witho's rung, not the Hungry Jacks, he's rung Simo and said, "Listen here, mate, sort your fucking staff out. Sort your staff out." Yeah, it's very good.
That's incredible. Yeah, I remember watching because I haven't been over to Perth since I was a kid, but I remember watching a pre-season game between Essendon and West Coast like 4 or 5 years ago, and watching it on the Vision. I'm like, hold on, is that a Hungry Jack's just literally next to the Oval? And I couldn't believe it.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you've been to the hangar in Melbourne, but we've got Urban Surf next door. So if you do like a surf and you don't want to have to leave the city, Urban Surf's right next door. So that's the big appeal. I mean, there's also a big toll place, but I mean, Urban Surf's probably the place to be.
I like
might be
that.
A bit healthier for you than a Hungry Jack's, I reckon.
Funny story. I was actually involved with the Urban Surf meant to come here in Perth. Me and Josh Kennedy were the ambassadors for it. So that's a good sell by you for the hangar. Interestingly though, I will be down at Captain's Run tomorrow with Essendon. The footy club's invited us down to do a little bit of content down there. So we're going to do a bit of content with big boy Nicky Martin and our man Mason Redmond. So we have sponsored athletes at every club. They don't get anything from us, but we sponsor them. So we started the year, and they're all backmen, of course, sponsored backmen. And it started with Nick Martin, who we all heard the rumours through the preseason. They'd flipped him back. He's taking kick-ins. We've got a couple of criteria you need to follow. One of them being you can't be getting put in the forward line, and if you do, you certainly can't be kicking goals. So, unfortunately, Nick, we've dropped him. He's been dropped last week, and Mason is now our guy. So we're going to do a bit of a back and forth down at Captain's Run. So if you'd like any messages to be put through to the boys, I'm very happy to pass some on tomorrow.
Oh, I'll have a think. I actually on Nick. I mean, we'll talk about him because he's been an absolute revelation. So Nick came on the Sash pre-season last year, I think it was. So he played like his first season. Incredibly, he was so shy. I couldn't believe how shy he was the first time I met him. I think I might have been one of the first ever interviews he'd actually done.
Unreal.
And we joked to him, me and Mert, who I was doing the show with for that episode. We joked to him, been like, "Oh, so how did it feel halfway through your first game? The team's down by 10 goals, but you've already kicked 4. When did you realise you were the best player at the club?" And he went bright red as we were doing it. Like, we were clearly taking the piss, but he went bright red. And I'm like, this is a really humble kid. And for, a guy who we picked up for nothing in the little supplementary pickups has been, I mean, one of the biggest revelations for Essendon in the last almost decade, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, the jokes go over here with West Coast fans. I think he did 2 pre-seasons down with West Coast, and, not good enough. Couldn't make, I don't know what they were looking at. But he definitely evolved very quickly into a good player. Like, I saw him in the Waffle the years he wasn't on the list, and he wasn't the Nick Martin we see right now. And I think he'd admit that as well. But what makes good players and then turns them into great players is the ability to learn, adapt, and to get better in areas that you may not be successful in, and also making sure your strengths are what you're putting out there. I think if you spoke to a lot of great players, they don't spend a lot of time working on their weaknesses. They might not have as many as plebs like you and I, Rob, but they bring their strengths every week, and I think that's what we're seeing from Nick. And his strengths look like he's a good decision maker. Like, from very early on, you could see that he was at the level. Like, he could, get a footy and be in traffic and make decisions. And then, what he does with the footy, and he's got good skills, all of that. But for me, he looks like a really quick decision maker. And clearly that's why he's gone from where he's been to, one of your best players, was the ability to make decisions. I'm really happy for him. Looks like a great bloke. Haven't met him too many times, but love it.
Now, there's not going to be anyone down there trying to, coerce him to come back to WA. Is there by any chance? Because I always get worried when guys like this head back to their home state, and I'm worried there's going to be a few people there tapping the shoulder, being like, "Hey, you should come back here," because we want to lock him away. He's a Bomber for life as far as we're concerned.
Well, I'd be putting a contract in front of him to make sure that happens. You can't just hope people have loyalty in the game now. I mean, I was lucky enough to be a one club player, but it wasn't because I was turning down offers left, right, and centre. No one else wanted me, so I stayed at West Coast. But Nick Martin surely will have offers from West Coast and Freo. It'd be stupid, it'd be negligent not to. So I would put it back on Essendon and say if you rate him, if he's one of your best players, I would pay him accordingly.
Yeah, I think he signed a new deal. I think we've got him to either 26 or 27. So we've got him for a bit, but I said it from the day he broke out in the team. I'm like, they're going to come knocking one day, whether it's this year or next year. At some point, both these WA clubs are going to come knocking with a big figure for this guy if he continues on the trajectory that he's on. So, absolute revelation for us, and he's certainly going well. While we're talking Bombers players, who's caught your eye this year? You said at the top that you're starting to feel like maybe you can start to, back us each week. Who are the ones in your eyes that you're most impressed with?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you get to start at the top, don't you? Zach Merritt, lucky enough to play a bit of footy with his brother Jackson at Peel Thunder at the back end of my career. Seemed like a really good family, but above all, what he's done and you couldn't argue this, what he's done in a side that hasn't performed at the levels of, good sides. He has just been such a consistent performer for you guys, but he's gone to a new level this year, right? Yeah. And you can see that want, that desire. When the game isn't going well, he goes to a new level defensively. I think at times in career, he's maybe had a reputation of being attack only. Mate, you can see him working his ass off. And for younger players who are in the side, if your captain's doing that, the defensive stuff, the chase, the tackle, the smothers, the in and under, well, you don't have a choice. Otherwise, you're not in the side. So for me, start at the top. If we look at each end, the package has always been a bit of an enigma, hasn't he? And I don't know how you and your fan base looks at him, but I think that's okay. I think as long as you accept that's Jack Stringer, he's never going to be your 30-a-week guy. He's also probably never going to be your 5 goals a week guy. But every 4 games, he's ripping it apart. And he's literally winning the game for you. And I think you've got to be okay with that.
Sorry to cut you off.
No.
So we call him Paco on this show. That's what he's referred to. He's called Paco. The reasoning for that was when he came over from the Doggies and he was the package. One of the boys on my show said, "You're at a new club. You got to have a new nickname." So we took package and we've shortened it. So he's been Paco for the whole time he's been at Essendon. There's one thing we learned about Paco. Contract year Paco is the best. So this is contract year Paco, which means he's dropped the weight, he's sorted his stuff out, and now he's really applying himself to make sure he signs on again. I'm not sure if you saw any of the post-match stuff from, I think it was the Bulldogs game maybe, but he's recently found some religion in his life and he's become a bit of a holy man. So maybe that's turning the tide. And we've sort of said, look, if you're doing what you're doing on the field, you can worship whoever you want. But I'll give you a stat that most people wouldn't think. Most tackles inside 50 for Essendon this season is Jake Stringer. You would think it's going to be one of the other guys and you'd think he's all about attack, but he's actually putting in that defensive side to his game, which, let's be honest, in the last 2 or 3 years since the last contract year, he hasn't done. And I am starting to see a bit more maturity in him, I think, and I feel like, the cool head from Brad Scott is hopefully bringing that best out of him, because it's all well and good for him to just, like you said, every 4 or 5 games do the incredible, but I think as Essendon supporters, we'd rather than having one game 100 and then the rest games are 25, 25, 25, let's get 5 games where you're at, 75, if that sort of makes sense, if you know what I mean. Let's get a bit of consistency.
You're just not going to get it. I don't think you're going to get it. A couple of things there, though. I'm going to steal a fair bit of material there for Fox Footy. I'll be calling the game. So I'll be taking the Jake Packy. I'll be taking the Jake Stringer sat on forward 50 tackles. I'll also be taking Paco, and I'll be referring to him as Paco on the coverage. So if you're watching along, ladies and gentlemen, I will be using that.
Can I give you one more? So I was going to save this to the end, but we may as well talk about it now, seeing as you're going to be on the telecast on Saturday night. So on this show, we had a little joke that started, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. So on our Monday show, people send in voice notes. We play them out. We listen to them. They're really funny. Some bloke sent one in, clearly had a few beers, and he referred to the Bombers as the Planes. And we've been calling us the Planes as a joke for the better part of the last 2 or 3 years, I think, which is great because there's always some people on our channels who are like, we're not the Planes, we're the Bombers. Why are you doing this? And I make caps and beanies. I'll show one to you here. So I'll send one of these over to you. I'll send you a Go Planes, but my challenge for you, Will, is that at some point, there's the cap if you'd rather a cap. At some point on the coverage on Saturday night, I don't care how you weave it in. It'd be great if it's during play as opposed to in a break. But if you can drop a Planes and a Paco as well, that'd make it because we'll meme the hell out of that. So that's my challenge for you.
Absolutely, challenge accepted. There's no other way to take these on than full front. So. Not only will I say it, but I'll make sure it's very obvious, and it'll be in play, and it'll be in a big moment, and I'll get really excited about it. And I think optimum level would be when Paco kicks a ripper, and the Planes are
Planes are up and about.
The plane will be landing. Don't worry about that. I'll sort it out. Absolutely, it would be my great pleasure to roll that out for the Sash community.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. That'd absolutely be brilliant. Let's be a little bit more serious now, and we'll probably look at the actual game itself. Expectations, I think we're both expecting, obviously, Essendon going in as favourites. We're expecting them to bring some level of performance to what they have in the previous weeks. I guess the worry for us as Essendon fans is we've had 2 away trips, one of which was by far our worst game of the year against Port, and we are, I'm worried that another flight interstate's going to bring a bad performance. What do you think's the key factor for this game? If post game you're talking about the winner and the loser, what's going to be the most important criteria for the winner on Saturday?
Oh, well, there's 2 things that haven't really changed in football for a long period of time, and it's midfield dominance, field position through that. So that's stoppage, clearance work, and more specifically centre bounce dominance. And then it's the ability to either attack or defend off the turnover. So both of those things, Essendon's going to have to, take this West Coast midfield on, and that's what's turning around for West Coast. Their midfield dominance they've had in games. So they absolutely dominated Fremantle through the guts. They had 12 goals from stoppage halfway through the third quarter. If something similar happens to Essendon, you actually can't win. So you're going to have to put time into into Reid. Jimby's more of a role player, but like Tim Kelly, they now have a midfield that if you don't pay the respect due, like one of them will get off the chain. They're playing that way. So you need to, I think, give them some respect. And I'm sure, Essendon players will. And then what you do off the turnover, that's what separates good and bad sides is, when that ball turns over, whether you've just turned it over to score, how quickly can you react? Can you react quicker than the West Coast defenders? Can you shape that footy, to score off it? And then, conversely, when you do turn the ball over, which we have seen Essendon do, can you defend behind it? And I know that sounds like a little bit, not specific to this game, but that separates winners and losers. Can you defend and can you attack off turnover? And what can you do through the midfield? As much as I would love to say, and it's true, backs win premierships. Don't worry about that, right? Forwards sell memberships, mid-side sponsorships, backs win premierships, right? That's how it works. But unfortunately, the midfield has a lot to do with the result of games.
No, definitely. And the big change for Essendon this season has been that we've got 2 blokes who've stepped up as, quote, defensive midfielders who actually are going to put in the dirty work so that the other guys who are more offensively minded can do it. Sam Durham's been a revelation this year since coming off a wing and becoming an inside mid. And then Jai Caldwell as well, who, I mean, we harp on about him, and I think Essendon fans do, but in the wider the media, and even if you go to like coaches' votes, like there's been several weeks where I've had him in my best 5 players on the ground, or at least for Essendon, and then I just don't see much talked about him. And like I feel like he's done some really good jobs defensively. How they match up against this Eagles midfield, I don't know, because Yo seems to be back to his best. Obviously, Harley Reid we've spoken about, and you know, I think sometimes like when a really good player has a couple of down years, like Tim Kelly has, people just kind of forget how good they actually are. And even last year when the Eagles were losing every week, from what I was watching, Tim was still putting in some pretty good performances. So I think it's an actually interesting one for Essendon as you go, which of these guys do you put the most attention into? Because as you said, if you leave one of them open, and probably it's the same case for Essendon, if you let one of them loose, someone's going to cut you up. I guess it's just a question of who it's going to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tim Kelly had his best year of footy he's ever had in the AFL last year. He won the best and fairest by about 50 votes. Like, absolutely, there was no one within, Bull's roar of him. He is probably taken a back seat this year. The explosiveness of Yo and Reid have been on show, but I really look at him as a player that he's that guy that gets off. If you start giving too much attention to Yo Reid, like Tim Kelly's a good player. But in saying all of that, you don't need to defend these guys to win. Like what you guys need to do is have, Merritt, Parrish, Durham, although he's been somewhat defensive, like he's been outstanding this year. And I think having those guys, you're the better side. So Essendon should be taking it up to this West Coast midfield. Like it's not a defensive game for Essendon. You need to get on top of them.
Yeah, definitely. While we're talking mids, I actually want to talk to you about the Ruckman Bailey Williams, because I really rate Bailey Williams from the few times I've watched West Coast, because I feel like his ability just to jump all over the top of an opposition ruckman's quite underrated at times, and I feel like he runs pretty well around the ground and gets involved. Maybe it's just he's one of those players who just decides to play well against Essendon, because there's certainly a few of those in the league. Where do you see Bailey going up against possibly a duo in Draper or Goldstein this week?
Mate, I think it's a tough ask. You guys got enough ruckman in your side. I mean, Peter Wright's running around up there. You got Toddy Goldstein. You got Draper.
Well, we've got who I think the best ruckman in the VFL, Nick Bryan, who I think would be playing for most other sides, but Goldie's keeping out of the team. So we're stocked for rucks. Absolutely stocked for rucks.
How do you reckon match committee was last week? There was a bit of back and forward. Peter Wright back in the side. Are they going to drop a ruckman? Right. Fucking told Goldstein's on your match committee, mate. He's your ruck coach. You reckon he's dropping himself? Who do we want to play, boys? Well, I reckon I'm going to play. Sammy might have a rest in the twos. And, of course, now, big Sammy Draper's out. He's put Luke Beveridge and the Western Bulldogs on notice, of course. I saw that during the week.
Bit silly from Sam. I didn't mind it, but a bit silly, I think.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, Bailey Williams... At times last year, he was outstanding. He could compete. He's that hybrid ruckman, but he trained the entire preseason as a forward. And then Matt Flynn, who they recruited to the footy club from GWS, he was their number one guy. I watched him in a preseason game. He dominated Bailey Williams. And so they've really missed him. He's got another 2 or 3 weeks on the sidelines. But without him, look, I think that's a real area of dominance for the Bombers. Yeah. Goldstein, Draper. Look, I would say Goldstein's been your better ruck. I know Draper's been. He missed some games earlier in the year, but Todd Goldstein's been a really terrific pickup for you guys.
He has. I agree. Yeah, they're very different. Draper's just chaos, very wild in the way that he plays and can kind of do miraculous things, whereas Goldstein is just a very reliable footballer who makes smart decisions, gets to the right place. Skills are good, skills are clean. Yes. Draper's more of the highlight package, I guess you could say.
Packer.
Yeah, exactly. He's the Paco.
Paco Junior.
I'll ask you about some of our defenders, seeing as this is a back chat. What have you made of Big Benny Mackay? Because he's come in on the big wage. I think he's the highest paid player in the league for this season.
Is he?
Oh, yeah, this year he is. It's because it's a front-ended deal. Like it's a massively front-ended deal. So So number one for this year, I'm fairly certain. Wow. If not, he's probably top 3. I didn't know what to expect because, North Melbourne are often the cellar dweller time slots on television. Unless you're playing them, you're not really going out of your way to watch North Melbourne these days. So I didn't know what to expect, but he's been fantastic for us, I think, and with who I say is our best defender in Jordan Ridley out of the side, I think he's had to shoulder a lot of the burden down back. And look, Anzac Day was probably, almost say his probably worst game that he's played, where Mychek kind of got off the leash from him. But I feel like he's kept a lot of key forwards pretty quiet. What have you made of Big Benny so far?
Well, I mean, to start with, the Mychek's not the matchup for Ben Mackay. He's had to play on him because he's effectively Collingwood's best forward. But I've played on Mychek quite a bit, and he's more agile than Ben Mackay is. And so, I mean, that would have been the issue there. Look, I'm probably the same as you, Rob. Like, I didn't know about the acquisition. I from the eye test, for me, is he the best defender in the competition? No. And I don't think you could argue that. But does he feel a need in your side that is very important? I would say yes. So how's he gone this year? Look, I haven't seen every Essendon game. I'll put my hand up and say that. But the games that I've seen him play, he's probably been better than I thought he was as a player. And I think maybe that's fair. You would be able to tell me if that's fair or not. But I think he's performed above my expectations. Has he performed to the expectations of what his dollar says? No, I don't think he's anywhere near the best defender in the competition. And that's the issue with signing these big deals. It's all good and well to take a good deal for your family, and of course you're going to take it and come to a new club. You're from North, of course. You'd go anywhere but North. But you have to perform. The pressure will mount. If he can't improve, you guys want to see improvement. Essendon wants to see him get better and better. If he doesn't do that, I think it becomes a bit of a cauldron of pressure. And certainly I think you and fans would feel the same way.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think he's done really well so far, but it's about building on that. I think what'll help him is when the two other guys who, if the round one team, when everyone is fit, is supposed to be what the coach thinks is the best side, there's two guys missing for that. So Jordan Ridley's obviously back into the side, and he'll do wonders for Ben. And then the other is the young guy, Zach Reid, who I'm not sure, you probably haven't seen a great deal of him. He was, I think, pick 10 the year that we got Cox and Perkins, riddled with injuries. He's barely got in the park. And pre-season, it was, obviously Zerk Thatcher's gone. Laverty was in the twos group, and it was Reid, Ridley, and Mackay. Ridley gets injured pre-season. Reid plays half a game and then does his hammy against Hawthorn. So suddenly this new look backline has actually only had one of the pieces there. So I'm really excited for what it's going to be like when Ridley's there, because whether Ben is playing, the pure stopping role, it can free Ridley up to be more of an interceptor, or vice versa, depending on the matchups.
How far off is the Riddler? I'm a big fantasy guy, Rob. I'm having my best year ever this year, actually, and the Riddler has been a favourite of mine over the past few seasons. Yeah. Didn't make the side this year, given his injury troubles back into last year. How far off is he? Because he's a bloody important player to you guys.
I say at least a month. I mean, the club website says 6 weeks, but so he re-injured a quad injury, and one of the guys who comes on this show is an osteo, and he explained to me how uncommon this injury is, at least for him dealing with AFL people, and he re-injured it again. So they're obviously going to be pretty cautious. So I think for fantasy sake, I wouldn't touch him until after the bye. I'd want to make sure he's been back for a couple of weeks, because he's incredibly vital for us. Alongside Nick Martin, he's the other really damaging kick in the back line. Maybe you could make a case for Andy McGrath this season. He's taken a big step forward, but the Riddler's massive. What have you made of Andy McGrath? Because he was really good at Anzac Day, and he's played a couple of really, really solid games this year.
Yeah, he's always going to be an interesting one. He's such a high draft pick, and play him in the back line. I think a lot of people want those high draft picks to go through the midfield. So he adds something to you guys that I don't think you have, that run, the carry, and he breaks lines. So I like the look of him. I like leaving him where he is. I've really always liked the way he plays. Yeah. And I think he's an important part to your group as well.
All right, so Will, one thing we do here on the Sash when we do a bit of a preview show is we finish off with some very simple predictions. It's nothing crazy. We just go with a best on, most goals, and a result. So seeing as you're the guest, I'll put you on the spot, and if you can give me your result, Give me your best on, and who's going to kick the most goals on Saturday night.
Righto. Look, West Coast don't tag, so best on Zach Merritt. Essendon with this one, not as convincingly as some people think. I think 3 to 4 goals for an Essendon win. And who's kicking the most goals? Mate, we've got to go with Paco. Paco's kicking 4 of the best. We'll see a couple late, and Schofield to get very fucking excited in the Fox Footy box with a big Plains call to finish off the last quarter.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, look, I'm like you. I think it'll be closer than some people are predicting, and I'm going to go Essendon. I'm going to say Essendon 20 points. I reckon Peter Wright's due for a big bag. I think he's had a couple. He's been back in the side now for one game, but I'm going to put him down for 4+. And yeah, it's hard to go past Zach Merritt for best on. I think I've had him tipped for best on the last 3 weeks, and I've been correct. So I may as well keep writing that.
Brilliant.
Well, you've been very generous with your time, and it's been fantastic having you on the Sash for the first time. And I'm hanging out for the call on Saturday night. I'm absolutely stinging for it now. Thank you very much, and we'll have to speak soon.
When I roll out the Plains and when I roll out Paco, I would just like some friendly feedback on socials, maybe even on Backchat on our live YouTube. I'd like the fans of the Sash to just give me the credit I deserve, because I will be rolling this out.
Okay, love to hear it. Thanks, Will.
Hey, can I finish off with this?
Yeah, go for it.
Up the Dons, right? Up the Plains. We bloody
Up
get the Plains done. We bloody get it done. Have a look at this.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, look at this beautiful thing. I bought this in a marketing cooter just to chuck at the back. So we've spent absolutely no money with the footy club with that one.
Easy. Love that. Love that. Well, Will Schofield, Backchat, Fox Footy, Premiership Eagle, of course. Thanks for joining us, and we'll speak soon.
Thanks, mate.